I'd like to talk to you guys a little bit about our fundamental rights as people, human beings. Take a little break from flat earth. This isn't about flat earth. This is about our fundamental rights as human beings worldwide, really. But definitely is articulated in the Constitution of the United States. I would like to read a little bit about some of the cases and just an initial foreword. The right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon by horse-drawn carriage, wagon, or automobile is not a mere privilege which may be permitted or prohibited at will, but a common right which he has under his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Under his constitutional guarantee, one may, therefore, under normal conditions, travel at his inclination along the public highways or in public places, and while conducting himself in an orderly and decent manner, neither interfering with nor disturbing another's rights. He will be protected not only in his person, but in his safe conduct. And then in Thompson versus Smith, 154 SE 59, 11, American Jurisprudence, Constitutional Law, Section 329, page 1135, the right of a citizen to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business is a common right which he has under the right to enjoy life and liberty, to acquire and possess property, and to protect or pursue happiness and safety. It includes the right, in so doing, to use the ordinary and usual conveyances of the day, and under the existing modes of travel, includes the right to drive a horse-drawn carriage or wagon thereon, or to operate an automobile thereon, for the usual and ordinary purpose of life and business. Then in Thompson versus Smith Supra, TECHE, lines, verse Danforth, MISS 12S.2D784. The right of the citizen to drive on a public street with freedom from police interference is a fundamental constitutional right. White, 97, CAL.APP, 3D.141, 158, CAL.RPTR.562, 566-67, 1979. Citizens have a right to drive upon the public streets of the District of Columbia or any other city absent a constitutionally sound reason for limiting their access. I'm just going to name the names. I'm not going to go through the numbers values anymore. Kenesha Mills vs. D.C. The use of the automobile as a necessary adjunct to the earnings of a livelihood in modern life requires us, in the interest of realism, to conclude that the right to use an automobile on the public highways partakes of the nature of a liberty within the meaning of the constitutional guarantees. Then we have Berberian vs. Lucier, 1958. The right to operate a motor vehicle, an automobile, upon the public streets and highways is not a mere privilege. It is a right of liberty, the enjoyment of which is protected by the guarantees of the federal and states' constitutions. Adam versus City of Pocatello. A traveler has an equal right to employ an automobile as a means of transportation and to occupy the public highways with other vehicles in common use. Campbell versus Walker. The owner of an automobile has the same right as the owner of other vehicles to use the highway. A traveler on foot has the same right to the use of public highways as an automobile or any other vehicle. Simeon versus Lindsay. The right of the citizen to drive upon the public street with freedom from police interference unless he is engaged in suspicious conduct associated with some manner of criminality is a fundamental constitutional right, which must be protected by the courts. People versus Horton. The right to make use of an automobile as a vehicle of travel along the highways of the state is no longer an open question. The owners thereof have the same rights in the roads as the streets as the drivers of horse or those riding a bicycle or traveling in some other vehicle. House versus Kramer, and Framsworth versus Tampa Electric. The automobile may be used with safety to other users on the highway, and its proper use upon the highways there is an equal right with the users of other vehicles' property properly on the highways. The law recognizes such right of use upon general principles. Then we have Brinkman versus Pacholika. The law does not denounce motor carriages as such or public highways or public ways. They have an equal right with the other vehicles in common use to occupy the streets and roads. It is improper to say that the driver of the horse has rights to the roads superior to the driver of the automobile. Both have the right to use as easement. Indiana Springs Company versus Brown. U.S. Supreme Court says no license necessary to drive automobiles on public highways, streets. No license is necessarily. Copy and share freely YHVH name 22A. Highway is not a public way open and free to anyone who has occasion to pass along it or on foot with any kind of vehicle. And that's Schlesinger versus City of Atlanta. Now Holland versus Shackelford and Stavola versus Palmer. There can be no question on the right of automobile owners to occupy and use the public streets of cities or highways in the rural districts. Leibbart and versus Crandall. The word automobile connotes a pleasure vehicle designed for the transportation of persons on highways. American Mutual Liberty INS Company versus Chaput. Let's see. Chapter Motor Vehicle 18 U.S.C. Part 1, Chapter 2, Section 31, Definitions. Number 6. Motor vehicle. The term motor vehicle means every description of carriage or other contrivance propelled by or drawn by mechanical power and used for commercial purposes on the highways. The term used for commercial purposes means the carriages of persons or property or for any fare. Means the carriage of persons or property for any fare, fee, rate, charge or other consideration, or directly or indirectly in connection with any business or other undertaking intended for profit. A motor vehicle or automobile for hire is a motor vehicle. Other than an automobile stage used for the transportation of persons for which remuneration is received. So basically, if you don't get money for being on the highway, you're not driving commercially. International Motor Transit Company versus Seattle. The term motor vehicle is different and broader than the word automobile. City of Clayton versus DeBras. Thus, self-driven vehicles are classified according to the use to which they are put, rather than according to the means by which they are propelled. The Supreme Court in Arthur v. Morgan held that carriages were properly classified as household effects, and we see no reason that automobiles should not be similarly disposed of. That means if you buy a fork or a spoon or a cell phone or a bottle of hair conditioner, you don't have to register it. It's the same thing as any personal private. You have the right to privacy with everything you buy. You don't have to keep a record of it and show them that you're registering it in this person's name or this and that. No, it's your private property. Do with it what you will. Hill House versus the United States. A citizen has the right to travel upon the public highways and to transport his property thereon. State versus Johnson. Cummins versus Holmes. Packard versus Banton. Hadfield versus London. Willis versus Buck. Those all go to that one. Barney versus Board of Railroad Commissioners. The use of the highways for the purposes of travel and transportation is not a mere privilege, but a common and fundamental right of which the public and the individual cannot be rightfully deprived. Chicago Motor Coach versus Chicago. Lagar versus Chicago. Boone versus Clark. Highways Section 163. The right of a citizen to travel upon the highway and to transport his property thereon in the ordinary course of life and business is the usual and ordinary right of the citizen, a right common to all. Ex parte Dickey versus Davis. Every citizen has an unalienable right to make use of the public highways of the state. Every citizen has full freedom to travel from place to place in the enjoyment of life and liberty. People versus Nothas. No state government entity has the power to allow or deny passage on the highways, byways, or waterways. Transporting his vehicle and personal property for either recreation or business, but by being subject to only local regulation, an example, safety, caution, traffic lights, speed limits, etc.